Well, joining me now is consultant editor for Social Work News and independent social worker Vince Peart. Vince, good to see you this afternoon. Unimaginable tragedy, the death of Star Hobson, despite many warnings and alarms being sounded. What has been learnt?
The first thing I would say, Sam, is I think it's incredibly brave and admirable that we have Star's aunt who's going to come and speak about those issues. And the first thing I would say in terms of what lessons can be learned is that we have to hear from people like her. What we've just heard from Alicia there is that the family did every single thing they could do to try and firstly care for Star themselves, and secondly, to try and raise those issues with children's services. So in terms of the lessons, we have to listen to the people that matter most here, and those are the experts by experience. It's the children who are affected by these issues, and in this case with Star, it's the family members, as we've just heard from Alicia there. In terms of the wider issues, in terms of what can be learned from this, it is of course sad that the local authority who are involved in this case are unable to comment on the matters so far. But what we do know about Bradford is an inadequate authority, and Bradford, as of last week, have just been taken over by an independent trust. Now, those trusts do work. We can see the example of Sunderland, which was taken over by a trust 5 years ago and has gone from being rated inadequate by Ofsted to rated outstanding. That works, Sam, but it's a long journey, and it does not need local action alone. This needs a national response from government, from organisations and from social workers ourselves.
When you hear in that report the number of family members who were raising concerns, they had photographic evidence of their concerns. How do you suppose it is that those alarms were just not listened to? How does that happen?
Well, it's indefensible in this case, as we heard firstly from Alicia just then, and as we also heard throughout the extensive trial on this one. I mean, this was a trial that lasted the best part of a month, and then the deliberations themselves, just for the jury to reach a verdict, lasted 4 days. So we've heard lots of evidence about the family going above and beyond, showing evidence of bruising, raising concerns about disguised compliance, raising concerns about the horrific abuse of a child we heard described there by Alicia of a choke slam. In terms of what more could the family have done here, there is little more that family could have done. And I think blaming the family or saying they should have done more is totally off the cards, off the table. That is something that should not be considered at all. In relation to the local authority, what they could have done, now, of course, I can't give exact examples because I don't work for Bradford, and Bradford will be currently undergoing a serious case review regarding Star's death. And lessons will be learned from that, which is the old mantra. We hear that line time and time again. But what I would say that if lessons would be learned from reviews, it would have worked already. If attacks on social workers worked, that would have worked already. We can only go back 30 years or so. We've got high-profile cases: Jasmine Beckford, Peter Connolly, Daniel Pelker. We've got Star Hobson. We've got Arthur Labinjo Hughes that have also, come to national prominence at the end of last year. If
and
lessons...
that list will continue to grow, won't it? We hear that social workers, they don't actually get to spend that much time going to do visits and spending time with families. They're tied up in admin and bureaucracy. Does that ring true?
Oh, definitely. And this is why I think we have to move from a blame culture and a risk-averse culture to a supportive culture for social workers. Social workers work on average for free, 10 hours a week extra. Social workers are paid 37 hours a week, salaried profession. Most social workers work around 50 hours a week. Social workers spend 80% of their time on paperwork and only 20% of direct time with family. Social workers can have anywhere between 15 to 40 cases. An inadequate authority may have social workers on 40 cases, with managers which change on a month-by-month basis, changes of senior management, changes of structural model, change of practice model. Yet you may have an outstanding local authority where social workers are on 15 cases. What we need, Sam, is we need a national care service. We need a standard that is set for every social worker, and most importantly, every child, that whether you live in Slough, whether you live in Birmingham, whether you live in Bradford, whether you live in Kensington, your child will have the same level of service from a social worker. That cannot be achieved in the current system we have, where each local authority is independent and each local authority is responsible. Because what you see here is you see some local authorities that are inadequate and some are outstanding. A family can literally move across a county border and go from having a social worker on 15 cases who is working in an outstanding authority to a social worker on 40 cases who is working in an inadequate authority. That simply isn't good enough. It wouldn't be good enough in teaching. It wouldn't be good enough in policing. It wouldn't be good enough in nursing. So I do not see how we can stand this and stomach it for social work.
All right, we've got to leave it there, but really good to get your thoughts on Sky News. Thank you.
Thank you.